back to the Cheron Moore Show. Of course, I'm Cheron, your host. Today is the day. You know, I put in a new segment in my show I call Extraordinary Drummers. Now, most of you know I used to be a drummer, but I retired so many years ago. But I still have the passion. I still have the fascination for drums. Well, these days I get a chance to see it in other drummers. And I've met some extraordinary drummers along the way. Hence the series I call Extraordinary Drummers. Today we're going to meet just that. Mr. Fred Dinkins, drum instructor here at the Musician Institute School. Come on in, let's go on and say hi to Fred.
How you doing, man?
Hey.
Good to see you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, anytime.
I just ask that you talk as loud as you can because the mic is on the camera there.
Okay.
How you been?
I've been good. Been blessed, man.
Boy, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You know,
man.
whenever I think of you, whenever I look at you, I think of you, I just think of the body of work you've had.
Man.
What a body. What was it like working? You worked with the emotions, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was amazing, man. I learned a lot playing with them. I mean, like, I kind of got, like, I would say the professional groundwork laid for me working with someone such as them. Because you know, as much as I thought I knew, you know, I played with a lot of singers, but when you start playing with the upper echelon of singers in the business, you start to learn more about dynamics, more about you know, your timing for sure, your sound. You have to develop your sound, like between bass drum, snare drum, and hi-hat. You know, you just can't sit up there and just play anything. You got to think about colors, and even down to the cymbals that you choose. You have to learn, like, it may not be the cymbals you choose that work for that particular gig. And that was one big thing I learned. Like, even a snare drum I couldn't use one time because they said it was too loud. And the cymbals would mess with their intonation. You know, a couple of cymbals I had, every time I hit it, they would turn around and go, that's messing with our pitch. And I had to go back to Sabian and get a whole new set of cymbals. So I learned a lot, though, because in the studio that matters. You know, when you start recording for people, and you know, you go in and you take your stuff. You just don't take one set of your favorite cymbals or your favorite snare drum, because that may not work.
Let me ask this question. First, let me say we are here at the Musician Institute, and what a school. Guys come from all around the world to come here, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Now, you are a drum teacher here. Is that right, drum instructor or drum teacher?
Drum instructor.
Drum instructor.
Yes.
Is there a difference between teacher and instructor?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. It's just which one you choose to use.
Gotcha.
From my perspective.
Now, how long have you been here at the Musicians Institute?
Man, I've been here for, I have an anniversary of 30 years coming up.
I can remember, as far back as I can remember, you've been here. And I'm going back to Motley Crue days and lipstick and spandex bands when it was like that around here.
Yeah, when I came out, man, and I actually really, I mean, they have it as 30 years. It really should be 31, because I started teaching, like, the summer session right after I graduated, which was in '86, March '86. And I started teaching the summer session right after that. And then the following year, I got, you know, hired on as a regular employee.
Before I get to how did you get here, and I want to talk about your history, because I know you're from St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about how you get from St. Louis to Hollywood and then make such a huge name for yourself. I want to talk about, I want to ask, tell me a little bit about the Musician Institute School. Not as much, but how was it founded, and what happens here? What are some of the things that happens here and taught here?
Well, I mean, it was founded by a guy by the name of Pat Hicks, And then it was just a guitar school. And Joe Picaro and Ralph Humphrey decided to open up the drum school, which was formerly known as PIT. And basically they set up the most amazing structure of education that I never knew existed until I enrolled. And it was like geniuses put this whole thing together, for you to learn pretty much the styles, your rudiments, and learn how to use them on the drum set. And then just how to be a professional, all that stuff, and at that time it was a 1 year program when I came.
Wow. What year was that?
That was 85.
85.
Yeah. And man, that was like some hard stuff, man. Me coming from St. Louis, I was green as green could get. I had no idea a lot of this stuff was going on, man. Big band, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I found out is like, hey man, there's a lot of stuff I already know because I played at church.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And all the people that I played for in St. Louis, like the Williams brothers and Albertina Walker, and I played with the O'Neill twins. I recorded with them. Toured with them a lot. You start to say, well, I already know how to do this stuff. It's just the difference is on paper. But the school changed ownerships, and Ralph and Joe left. But we've been able to keep the ship rolling.
How did you get hired here as a teacher?
Like
did you say instructor or teacher?
Instructor,
Instructor.
but I started, like I said, in the summer session.
Okay.
Joe Picaro wanted me to get my feet wet.
Gotcha.
Because Joe's like a dad to me to this day. It's like I love him like my father. Because he was always behind me. Everything that I did, he pushed me, and I would have to go and like come up here when I graduated, and he would eat lunch and make me teach him a class while he ate lunch. And he would ask me questions that I had to answer the right way. So he kind of schooled me, man. Like a lot of people don't know that, but I would come up during his lunch period, and he would say, okay, you got to explain this to me. You have to explain that. And I had to do it the right way. Otherwise, it was like, no, let's do this again.
Wow.
So that's how I started like teaching, and they came to this school because we used to be across the street on Hollywood Boulevard when I came to school. We weren't in this building.
Oh.
And when they got in this building, they of course opened it up for more students, and they needed more instructors. And so I had to audition to start teaching here.
Let me go back, and I'll come back to the school. Such a body of work. We could be here for 4 hours easily and not scratch the surface with my dear friend Fred Dinkins here. So much want to talk to you about your production company. How do you say it? Dinkins?
Dinkman.
Dinkman.
Yeah.
Production. But you're from St. Louis. What was going on in the younger years? How did you become a drummer? How did you get into drumming as a child? Who was your favorite drummers too back then?
As long as I can remember, I've been banging on stuff, man. I mean, my mom told me, literally, like, I would take her pots and pans, and my sisters would say the same thing. And I do remember, like, this is stretching it, man, like the aluminum trash cans.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, the silver ones.
The silver ones.
Right.
I would take the tops and literally make them assemble like Omar Hakeem did with Weather Report. And you see these guys playing the buckets. Well, we had a store where we would get these pickles in these 5-gallon buckets. And so I didn't have drums, so I would play on the drums, man, behind the meat counter. I would set up like a little drum set back there, and my parents let me bang all I want. So I got my first kit, and I started working, and I took like one lesson with a guy. He showed me how to get the independence between my bass drum and snare drum, and that was it. I was gone after that. And then I ran into a good friend of mine, Laval Bell.
Yeah.
LaValle was going to a conservatory, something such as this, and they were teaching him all kind of stuff. And I saw him play. I'm like, man, where did you learn that? So he started breaking me in on reading.
Was that here in LA? Or was
No,
that
it's St. Louis.
Oh, he's from St. Louis?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He started helping me out with my reading, snare drum reading, and drum set reading. And man, after that, I was buying books and stuff. But then, you know, one day I heard a drummer on the radio, you know, which was Harvey Mason.
Yeah. Okay, we're back here at the Musicians Institute School, fine school that is in Hollywood, California. Talking with my dear friend, Fred Dinkins. Fred, you mind if I ask you now about the school itself? You are a drum instructor here, and I've heard so many stories how you can be pretty hard on the students. You make sure that they come out. I mean, when you say Fred Dinkins, they kind of tighten up and pull that stuff together. But tell me about teaching here. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, there's two different worlds. There's the world of out playing and guys mostly learn it by ear. But you understand theory and the side of learning what you're doing, and side of reading music. Can you tell me of those two worlds, and then tell me of the world of reading? What's happening in there?
Well, I mean, basically, this is how I tell my students. First of all, learning by ear is one of the best things you could ever learn. Like for me, growing up playing at church was the biggest thing. Because if you think about it, for me at my church, we would have a rehearsal where the choir would come in and they would learn the soprano, the tenor, the alto parts, you know, and if there was a four-part harmony, somebody would sing baritone, whatever. But as a musician, you have to sit there and listen to all that. And as they're playing that stuff, you're listening and learning, and then you put the song together, it's time to play. Well, learning by ear, to me, is the best thing. It's like, that's the natural gift. Reading is just something that it's like the cake is already made and you put the icing on the cake, where you walk into a situation and someone doesn't have to explain to you in complete detail as to what they are asking you to play, because you see it on the paper. You know how to interpret. Okay, that's the biggest thing, is interpretation when you talk about reading. Because for me, it's like, okay, I read notes, I read figures, but it's the interpretation of those figures that's important. Like stylistically, what does it mean? You know, to play from a lead sheet and there's no drum part written. So those are the things that I'm talking about when you say with reading. But the natural gift, if you know the style, you know, the style that that you grew up playing would probably get you through a little bit better, you know, like because your feel and your understanding of the music itself. And the reading, like I said, is just, you know, it's just saying, hey, we're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's, you know, for me, that's basically based on that. And being able to look at figures and go, oh, that's this, that's that, that's this, that's that. And where you don't have to think about like trying to figure the figure out. If you have to think about that, the music is gone. It's already over.
Now, what does that mean?
Meaning like music doesn't stop once it starts. So if you miss a figure reading, you can't stop. You got to keep going, and you got to also always know where beat one is. Just like if you just playing anyway. Because, you know, you might have syncopated rhythms that throw you off, but you still have to know where the downbeat is at. You know, you have to know where beat one is at. So, if I give a student a chart, let's say if it's something that they grew up playing, like just let's say they're a great rock player, okay? They're great rock. I give them a chart. Well, most of them freak out because it is a chart, but they already know how to play. And if they use their ears, that's the biggest thing also. It's like learning how to keep this like your main thing, not the eyes. It's funny you ask that because I use this all the time. The eyes take up 90 to 95% of sensory perception. Meaning like if you see something, your eyes make you see food, you want it, you look at water, you can imagine what the water sounds like just because of your eyes, even though if you don't hear it. So if you are not accustomed to reading, the eyes will lock your ears out. I tell your ears are this big now. Your eyes are like that, but the ears are like this. So you can't play. So a lot of times, and what we do here at the school is called Rhythm Section Workshop or LPW, Live Playing Workshop. I'll have students playing like this, and I'll boldly come up and snatch the chart away. Why are you doing that? I want to learn how to read. Play first. And usually when they get done, they go, I played it much better. I thought I didn't know it. It's like, well, the eyes have you locked in. So reading is if you don't know what you're doing, teaching it or trying to learn it, it's kind of like a balance thing, man. You have to really be careful. You got to make sure somebody can help you out that really understands what to do. You know.
How do you go about when the students come here to the school? How do you go about teaching them how to read? What is the first few steps?
First thing I teach is note values.
Now, what does that mean?
Note values, there's a tree. There's a note value tree. A whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16ths, 32nds, 64ths. We can keep going. But the main one is understanding how these notes work together. You know, 2 half notes make a whole note. You know, 4 quarter notes make a whole note. Or 2 eighth notes equal a quarter note. 4 16ths equal a quarter. You have to know those things so when you see it, and then you have to also know what a dot does to a note. It extends a note by half of its previous value. You know, so and I always like to use the magic number 3. If you know the note value tree, you look at the whole note. If you dot it, it's 2 half notes in a whole note anyway, plus another one. That's 3.
You know, you sounding like you speak in German a little bit, right?
you understand what I'm saying?
I get you. I'm just joking.
But if you knew the note value tree, and I got you to understand that, you know. Also pulse, understanding what pulse is, what that does.
Is that feeling or timing?
Pulse is both.
Okay.
Because it's a repetitive like sound or feel that you get. It's just like this. This is pulse. And what we do as drummers, we subdivide that. We play on top of that, even though it's still there. We subdivide, within what pulses.
So then, how do you get from teaching them the note values? What's the next step after that?
Once they know the note values, they look at it on paper. They have to know what it sounds like. Like you've played at church before, so a lot of people go, well, you had these big anthems. I used to play these big anthems that the choir would sing, and I used to love them because I used to be able to play a bunch of fills and stuff that they allowed me to play, and something like those are whole notes, right? So once I get you familiar with what that note is, you don't have any more problems with it. Like now, you know what a whole note is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a half note is half of that. Bum ba da bum bum ba da dum bum ba da da bum.
You cut it in half.
That's it.
Yeah.
The two of them make the one.
And what happens after that?
The quarter note. Dun 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 dun.
Can you break that down a little bit, Fred?
Well, it takes you got the whole note, like I said. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter note is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gotcha. Now,
and the subdivision, you notice it keeps getting smaller.
Right. And it sound like the accent is in a different place too.
1, 2, 3, 4. So if we're in 4/4, you got to deal with the time signature as well now. Because now you're stepping out of just note values. You got to go into time signatures. Time signatures tell you how many notes are in the measure, what note you're basically subdividing. So we here in America used to 4/4. 4 quarter notes in the measure. Quarter note is getting the beat, the pulse. So again, a whole note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we got to deal with note duration too, because as drummers, you have to think about playing piano or a horn or something. If you play a horn, you don't just hit a whole note like this. You have to, it has to sound out, and it has to have the full duration. Dun to the next note. Dun, 3, 4. Right? You gotta sing it all the way out. So notes have their once you get into the music side of it, that's when reading music really takes off. Because now you're not thinking as a drummer, you're thinking like a musician. Like you just playing a horn or a piano or something like that. Which is why we push here at MI, drummers have to take theory and harmony. They have to take ear training. Okay? And I push a lot of my students to play piano and take up bass. We have a class called Intro to Bass. The more you know about music, then the reading is nothing, because now it's about the music. And when people say reading, that's where some people allow the musicality to get lost.
Now say that again.
When people read and they don't really understand reading, they allow musicality to get lost.
Okay.
Because it's not musical anymore. And I'm quite sure you've seen that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I want to ask you about guys not being able to build up the feel, the vibe that happens on a drum kit because of the reading. The reading makes them real sterile. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, that's my point. Of the eyes taking up all the sensory perception you have in your body.
So how do you get funky reading? Because most guys I know that read, you can hear or feel there's a paper over there.
You have to play music first. That's what I'm saying.
I get it. You got to play music first.
You got to play music first. If you know how to play a funk groove, and they say to you, "Hey, this is funky," then you play funk. Again, it becomes a conversation and a map. That's all reading.
A Thomas guide, huh?
That's all a chart is, man. It's a conversation and a road map to say, hey, we're about to do this and we're about to do that. We're going to go over here. We might come back over here. If not, we're going over there and we're going to finish up here.
When guys are ready to get out in the clubs and whatnot and get out to playing, they usually, no. You know what? Before I ask you that question, how is it with guys coming from all around the world, speaking different languages, different accents? How is it for them? Some of them never even heard funky music and different things. How is it incorporating this with their background and their ethnicity?
Again, it depends on it depends on like what they're trying to do. And for me, I'll give you a story. Of course you remember Master Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Master used to teach here as well.
The singer, right?
Yeah.
Great singer.
Now, there was a kid came from Canada. He played a song, a Gladys Knight song, Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight and the Pips. And Master taught this kid a new one. This kid was 16 years old. He said between Master and me, he was out of here. He couldn't take it. He quit school. 2 years later, he's back. And we were just happened to be doing that song again in the R&B class. And the kid, matter of fact, he requested me as a private. He says, I would not have anybody but you right now, because I'm going to take this challenge. I said, okay, fine, man, let's do it. So, Midnight Train to Georgia comes up. He remembers what happened last time. He left the class literally crying. He says, Fred, how can I learn the song and do it right? I said, so can you tell me what the song is about? He couldn't. I made him go study the lyrics, come back and tell me what his interpretation of the song was. I said, now, what you just told me, I need you to play with that feel. This is where I need you to, this is exactly what I need you to do. Play with that feel and try to get that message across from what you play. He finished the class, he played it. Master stopped the class. Everybody gave this kid a standing ovation. This time he was crying, but it was tears of joy. So it doesn't matter your ethnicity. It depends on who you're around, who you're studying with. That's gonna make you like understand what feel really is. Because feel doesn't just come natural, like you
right.
said, for everybody.
Right.
But you can help people understand what feel is.